Hey everyone, welcome to our show. I'm your host Puja, and we are asking the what if question to picture a world we can help create together. If you're tuning in every week, welcome back. And if you're new here, we hope we give you reasons to stay. Most of us have lived through an experience of endless textbook chapters, countless number of tests, and the dreaded quarterly exams. It is sometimes normalized to an extent where we forget that human potential is not measured by the one thing you do day in and day out. In fact, every human has the ability to shine if they are presented with the opportunity to make a choice and spend time learning and practicing this choice, regardless of where they come from, which school they study in, or how much money they have to make this choice. Anand Gopakumar tells us more about how choice-based learning has the power to fuel a child's passion and in turn help to build fundamental human skills.
Yeah, so I was part of an organization called Teach for India. I did their fellowship from 2015 to 17. So fundamentally, what Teach for India fellowship means is basically you are placed as a government school teacher in one of the government schools in one of the metro cities in India. So I was a government school teacher in Pune, which is a city in India, and I was there. I was working inside a school as a teacher for a period of 2 years. A lot of what we developed or what we found purpose on doing the Apprentice Project is from the co-founders experience of working inside the school.
Right.
So I think I would like to go back like in 2015 when I started working inside the school. What we found out is most of the children that come to school do not even know why they are coming to school. Half of the children, like almost all of the children, think that if my father is a sabji wala, I think my destiny is also to become a sabji wala. So what is the purpose of education? So I think there is where I think the initial thoughts come in. Then we did some research on how actually education looks like in a developed country. We read and researched about the Finnish school of model. We read about the ITC, we read and researched about the ITCSE curriculum and more advanced curriculum. We found out that in fundamentally, I think I'm just going to step back. Our entire education system, which is the India's education system, is majorly built on first and second industrial revolution. It means that we are developed. I'll put it like that. Our system is developed in a way that we can put more and more people who does clerical job. Because at that time, that was the initial industrial revolution was majorly on operating that. But I think the third and fourth industrial revolution changed everything, right? So once the internet came in, I think earlier I can understand the focus was primarily on rote learning and that was needed for the world at that time. So it's irrelevant because as we all know, as we all have experienced in the past 6 months, everything in the world is changing at such a rapid pace and adaptability and human skills are becoming fundamental more than knowledge.
Very true.
And this is where I think the genesis of genesis of TAP was I think the idea was to build social emotional skill, which is basically fundamental human skills like critical thinking, creativity, confidence, collaboration, etc. And I think we found out that the best way to build any of these intangible human skills is by asking a child what he or she wants to do. And sadly, in our school system, nobody asks a child what he or she wants to do. Everything is being told to a child, and like it's really unfortunate because school is a time for learning, and school is a time where everyone should learn. And the major force people who learn, major students who learn the most are never asked what they want to learn. So that is how a mix of that's how we came out process we developed and we actually found purpose in this model of creating a choice-based learning platform which gives children a chance to learn what they are passionate about and use their passion as a medium to build innate human skills like creativity, critical thinking, confidence, etc., which can also help them succeed, survive, and thrive in this third and fourth industrial revolution, which is the internet age.
So I know a little bit about how TAP is implementing the model, and it's doing that through 4 different verticals and enabling choice-based learning. So could you give us a little bit of a detail about how these 4 verticals are playing out in your model currently?
I think when we started like developing the model of TAP, we went back to there's a Harvard professor called Howard Gardner. So he had done a research on multiple intelligence. How there are different ways of learning and not each child learns the same way. Based on that, we have structured our choices into four major buckets. One is visual arts, performance arts, technical arts, and sports. Visual arts is obviously art and craft, very big, like whatever can be visual. Performance arts, dance, drama, public speaking, music. Technical arts is coding and electronics. And sports. Sports was ultimate frisbee. So that based on that was the bucketing that happened. And I think in 2019-20, we worked with in the same classroom learning model with around 2,500 children and with the support of around 250 plus volunteer mentors who helped us deliver the program.
And now that you've told us a little bit about the partners of TAP and who you're working with, so of course your ultimate beneficiary are the children and the communities that they form a part of. Along with the children, who are your other partners and like you said, your volunteers and the mentors? So could you give us a little bit of an idea of how that is being implemented?
The TAP implements this choice-based learning program by with the support and the help of volunteer mentors who give their time every week for 2 hours for delivering the program. So to children and the volunteers, we call it learn what you love, teach what you love. So it's a system where people who want to teach what they love, these are amazing people from colleges, corporates, etc., wants to volunteer time and is passionate about the skills and the subjects that they want to teach, which is under these four verticals. They come and volunteer in a classroom and teach the children every week for 2 hours for delivering the program. Volunteers get support with the curriculum and everything, action plans, trainings, goals, etc. But I think majorly we have two. I think the entire program is possible because of two major stakeholders. One is our volunteers, which are superheroes in implementing everything and kind of spends insane amount of time in getting stuff to the children. And second are the schools who facilitate this arrangement, because we use on a classroom learning model, we use school as a medium to deliver our program. And at the end of the day, when people come to school, the school has to facilitate them, to give them spaces, to ensure that they are comfortable and all of those. So our school principals and schools are also very like a central part of our model.
Based on what I have seen, thanks to the videos that you shared, and that took me on that journey on exploring more of the videos that you put up on YouTube. And I also started realizing that this is something that you're doing as a part of continuing through the COVID period, because a lot of children have had to depend on technology and not all of them have access to it at the moment. So I understood that, okay, this is probably the pivot that you have made during the COVID period. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that came across and the ideas that came up, and just the whole process that you and your team went through to get all your systems up and make sure that children are learning no matter what during this period?
I think I would just go back slightly in March 2020, when before the pandemic or this period started. I think we were at the peak of our impact. We were working with around 2,500 children across schools in Pune and Bombay. Our impact assessment was going on. We were parallelly also, the children are also preparing for their final showcase, which is a big event for them, where they showcase what they have learned to an external audience of school, community, and external stakeholders. So a lot of stuff was going on a very programmatic level, and that's when COVID happened. So I think initially, after a bit of relief work, we understood that this is not gonna go down anytime soon, and more than ever, our children needed our support right now. So we have to actually think about a model where we were a 99% classroom learning model. And the only way to deliver our program is to convert to 100% online model. So this is where our team went through a lot of iterative process. This happened during the month of April, mid-April to May, to understand how do we can deliver the children. We tested a couple of live classes. We kept the bandwidth that the children have at the center, the device availability that the children have. More than the devices, just maybe one device per family, and especially for siblings, then it's even more confusing. So it's a lot of logistical and operational things that we have to go through, and through this process of multiple tasks, trying out different times, different steps, we came up with a model called mobile-based assisted self-learning model. Now, what does mobile based assisted self learning mean? It fundamentally means we use mobile to deliver our activities slash videos. Because basically, every week the child gets in their WhatsApp phone the PDF or the video of that week's activity. So that is why we call it mobile based learning. Now, at this point, the children have to self learn because there's no other option. And as we all know, learning has always been a together process. It
Yes.
has never been an alone process. And learning alone for a child is always a difficult thing. And this is where we created a model called assisted self learning. What does assisted self learning mean? We use a powerful mentor group who assists the children via WhatsApp based chat to complete the activity or video that they're getting per week. So fundamentally, the child gets activities slash videos to their phone. They try to do it, and in case they have a doubt or they have queries or they lack motivation to complete it, there's a WhatsApp-based group which gets active on one time in a week and motivates them, plays games with them. Like it's a live real-time group which kind of helps them complete the course. And that structured mentor time we call it, which is done by a volunteer mentor. There are multiple structures to ensure that the child is able to complete the course with the help of that assistance. So that's the pivot happened. And I think right now we are kind of looking at the other advantage of going online is the ability to reach more children is also higher. So we did the initial pilot with around 15 cities and 300 children. We shared the content with around 10,000 plus students across the country to 10 plus organizations. Now we are looking at a larger scale project because I think the power of online is always that it's very easy to reach multiple people.
Okay, so we have spoken about the power of choices before. So let's think about it with a more inclusive lens. In an under-resourced community, children might grow up never really knowing what they are good at, never realizing their true potential, or even worse, never knowing their true self, because they were not given a choice. This is when the resilient team of TAP stays grounded and true to their vision of inspiring a movement that defines inequality as nothing but the lack of opportunity, come pandemic or not.
I think the first is obviously the programmatic win that we internally celebrated. I think the idea was that it's very hard to pivot, especially our ideas of co-curricular, right? And that is visual arts, performance arts, coding. And the one thing that directly comes when people say online is let's do live class. In a government school setting or children with slightly on the lowest strata of the income, a lot of things are not possible in live classes. They don't have good internet connectivity, so they will drop off. Their bandwidth is less. They only have device available at a specific time because most of their parents have the devices. They don't have the devices. So live classes is not an option. This is where I think I am very amazed. I'm very amazed and proud of the entire team for kind of getting it into a model which is very unique in its own, where we are still delivering the model using an async method, which directly to WhatsApp, and then we are using WhatsApp chat to help the query the doubt. Which also means that if there is a doubt, it stays in the WhatsApp chat. So even if the child is missing, child can still go through it. So I think I'm very grateful and grateful to the whole team to kind of making this pivot, because when you make a pivot more than the work, you have to change a lot of your assumptions and biases also. So that was one of the huge things that we celebrated. And second, we got an award from Harvard Social Impact Fellowship, specifically for the online model, on how the scale and impact of the online model and the relevance of this model, especially during this COVID time. So that was also very, very motivating.
So now that you've reflected a little bit on your wins and you've shared that with us, what have your learnings been? What have your biggest learnings been? And without me really having to say what are the challenges, so let's flip it and talk about your learnings.
One that we underestimate the power of our children. Like what happens, for example, we as adults, when we work, we expect the children to follow the instructions that we say in a general tone. But what we always forget is that when we give instructions to a fifth grader and we don't ask that fifth grader to make a choice, we miss his or her perspective. But more importantly, a fifth grader knows exactly what he or she wants, which is relevant to a fifth grader. I think so. I think one of the things that we have changed is when children are given a choices to do, they do amazing stuff. So we have children who has not been doing really well in academics create games using coding, and difficult children. These are all difficult children to manage. But when they get interested in something, they do wonders because they want to do it. So I think that's something that we found, and we kind of learned that they should be given more power and more choices to do what they want. Another thing, I think the challenge, like in the sense in the not-for-profit space, there's a lot of equations which keeps on happening because it's a heavy human.
Yeah.
So if I'm programmed, but there's a lot of dependence that happens from all across. So even this mobile-based assisted self-learning, right? So right now, if I do it with a middle-income child, the parent ensures that the child is doing it. It can be
Right.
even 50% of the time. But yahan pe the child has to ensure himself or herself, which is a different ball game altogether. So I think just navigating this phase has itself been a very systemic kind of learning. That how do we have to motivate the child? Parents to kind of keep an eye on the child, like just to let him know that okay, I also know about what's happening. Parallelly, we have to keep the school also in loop because everybody is going online. So if like earlier, since it was a school-based model, so they expect them to be also in loop. And also you have a funder, which is a different entity altogether, which not in touch with the program. So he also needs to be in the loop. So I think managing multiple stakeholders in itself has been a huge learning experience. And majorly on how to communicate your impact to these three varied stakeholders in a way they can understand.
Since you brought this up earlier in the conversation, but then I just thought of it that you were a 99% classroom learning model, and that's how you started. And now you've not gone back to, but you have switched to a 100% online model. Looking ahead, is that something you would consider continuing, or do you believe that children need that in-person contact and they need to be amongst their peers to grow and learn? I've heard conflicting opinions on this because yes, technology does increase access. It does help you reach more people. But then you're also taking away that, mentorship and guidance that comes with being amongst each other. Keeping this context in mind, what have you thought for TAP? And what are you hopeful for?
So I completely agree with the school of thought which says that children needs that human touch. I'm not even questioning. It is one of the most important things that we all need when we are growing up. Problem that happens is that then there's always a limitation on the number of children that we can impact. With the classroom learning model, I can maximum in 5 years go up to 25 or 30,000 children. And that's the best case scenarios. Because there are a lot of things that comes in a classroom learning model because a human has to go from A position to B position, and there's a lot of effort which takes in facilitating that whole process. Like working with the government schools principals, government school system for getting that space to ensure that the child goes inside the class, to ensure that the child learns inside the class because there are other children also. So I think I would say the offline is can only be done at a limited scale. I think that's where the scale comes in. But online can get us to get that reach. I would say when a scale of 0 to 5, if offline is getting a 5 out of 5, online can get a 3.5 out of 5. 3.5 they can get at a 10x scale than offline. So I would say it is just a choice between should I reach more children or should I not?
Yeah, a hybrid model does sound like the way forward, and that I'm sure that's the case for a lot of organizations who've had to make the switch. And what are you hopeful for when you think about TAP's future? Although the world is changing every day, but when you do look ahead, what are you hopeful for? What do you hope that TAP's going to achieve?
So I think one of the biggest things that happened in the Indian education policy is the national education policy came after like 34 years. The policy specifically says about the focus should be on how to learn than what to learn. Policy clearly says we should not do rote learning. Second, the policy clearly says each child is unique and we should create systems in a way that each child's talent is nourished and empowered to go forward. And third, it explicitly says about liberal arts and holistic education. So I think a lot of TAP was speaking about with multiple stakeholders, as I said, telling about like if I tell about social, critical and creative or confidence to a normal person who is not a part of the education sector, they won't understand the importance of it, right? So it's like if I say we need to learn problem solving, what is that learn? It's not a hard skill, it's a soft skill.
Yeah. And what does that look like also in the classroom? I think often people are not able to put that into their frame of reference. So yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
So because we have never been taught how to do all of these stuff. No? So I think
Yeah,
if we go
true.
back to all our school days, everybody asks us to be confident. Even right now, be confident. Nobody tells us how
Hmm.
to be confident. Yeah, be confident is
Yeah,
always like, oh, come, be confident, speak in front of others. But that's just the outcome. Like, how will I reach that journey
yeah.
destination? So I think this is where I think again going back to the national education policy clearly articulates it, which means that when I speak to all my stakeholders, I can take our country's policy as the reference. Like I don't have to use a different narrative. Next couple of years, once the policy starts was getting it on the implementation stage, I think we will start working on implementing the policy because it has everything that we speak for. And
Hmm.
that is the partnership where I think where we act as knowledge partners because we have experience in delivering this since 2016, and where the policy
Hmm.
comes in the execution aspect in the schools that we work with will be a great collaboration to go forward.
I'm sure. And that's such an interesting point that you've brought up, that all this while the work that's being done by TAP, by TFI, I mean, I can say TFI because both of us have had that experience working with TFI. We knew what we were doing, and we knew what we had to do in the classrooms, and we had that frame of reference that this is what it means to develop higher order capacities in our kids. But when you do look at other schools who did not have such interventions, it was different. Not having that alignment with what other schools are doing, be it your private or government schools, minus the interventions, and the schools which have the interventions, it does confuse you at some point. It does make you wonder that, but this is not happening nationwide, and it's only happening here. Only a few kids are getting this benefit. So now with the NEP out, and so I think what I'm trying to say is I like the point that you made, that you have that narrative, and now you can walk this journey with the country's policy. I like that. That's my learning for today. So we come to our what if question. I like asking this question. I say this in every episode, but I like asking this question because it helps us think, it helps us picture a world that we can help create together. So, Anand, what if choice based learning was embedded in the academic curriculum and not just an extension of it?
I am from Kerala in Trivandrum. So, and I, till the age of 21, I had a very
Mm-hmm.
common, like a very convent education where I went to a Catholic school. Then I did engineering as everybody else in
Mm-hmm.
the country because we didn't know what else to do, right?
Yeah.
And till the age of 21, I did not know that there's an option that when I learn to go to school or go to college, I can love what I do. Like I can genuinely
Right.
like to learn it rather than I was majorly doing because
Mm-hmm.
I have to do. And I think choice based learning is
Right.
not a reality. I think after 21, I'll do job because I have to do a job. And I think that
Yeah.
will be the biggest change when
Yeah.
children, when anybody is founds the meaning and the pleasure that, okay, I am choosing it and I'm liking what I do. And in my life, I have that choice. I think that life will be different. Right? The life will be happier. I would put it like that because we shouldn't do stuff because we have to do.
Yeah, and that's been the reality for all of us, right? I mean, all of us who have been in that space growing up, learning, and also then being on the other side teaching. It's just been that confusing reality that, okay, back in our school this is how we were taught, and now, we need to start changing that, and that responsibility and that and the accountability that comes with it is pretty significant, because we do not want the next generation to develop or start thinking the way we have been thinking all this while. That needs to change, and I believe that choice based learning can really help move in that direction. All right, so another question that I like including in this show is about gratitude. You've already mentioned a little bit about that. You've already said that you're grateful to your team, but what are you grateful for today? Anything. It could be anything.
Like when we started creating
Mm-hmm.
this model, so I think the idea was to give children a chance to learn what they want to learn. Now the best way to get is get people who want to teach what they want to teach. And when you're working in a school as
Mm-hmm.
a teacher, you have absolutely no resources, right? There's absolutely no finances to kind of get
Yeah.
paid and get paid people to do the job. And I think that's when we started the volunteer model. So we believe that consistency should be there. So people should come every Saturday
Yeah.
or at that time in the school for like a period of 6 months, which is a consistent every weekend engagement. That's one thing. The
Mm-hmm.
second part is you and there'll be a select. We also have a selectivity plus on volunteering, so we don't Like unless a person doesn't clear the stages, we won't accept them to the process. So I think when we made these rules, I won't say rules, when we made this criteria, we were very unsure that people will come. Because we don't know, because when you make it in a document, we don't know how it looks like for others, right? It has to be a selective
Right.
volunteering, there is skill based selective one. It's too hard to even imagine, and we didn't have any references in our country at that time doing this. I think now
Right.
looking back 4 years, I'm very grateful for all the people who have signed up, like starting from the applications to even committing their time. And I think each time when they have done it, I can understand that, like when you commit once, like when in the classroom learning model, it was 2 hours every Saturday. That means that you are saying no to hundreds of stuff. And I'm very grateful for them for doing it. Like, I don't know why people do it. Like if a lot of people ask me the same question, like, why do they do it? I don't know, to be very honest. And I think I'm very grateful for them for doing it. So it's an honor to kind of work with people who kind of give something without even asking anything for it.
We often overlook the freedom we have as adults. The freedom to choose something, anything for ourselves. Think back to a time where you were able to make a decision for yourself. How did that feel? Isn't that a liberating, a freeing experience? Then why not extend that power of choice and offer it to children so that they don't just stop at learning, but do it with a lot more love? Alright friends, that's a wrap on today's episode. If you would like to explore TAB's fun world of choices, do check them out on their social channels. We are also very keen to hear from you. Write to us about what you like about the show or what can be done better. All thoughts, suggestions and feedback are welcome and valued here. I'll leave the links in your episode notes. If you've fallen behind on your Diwali gifts, you could perhaps gift your close ones the choice to listen to our show. Sneaky, I know. Until next time, stay safe and have a wonderful beginning to the festive season. And don't forget your gratitudes.